You'll have 1 minute to give an opening statement. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to questions. Thank you very much. Good luck.
I guess I'll start with how can we improve. I'm Gary Rosen, and I'm the City Councilor for beautiful District 5, and the Youth Center is in beautiful District 5. And this November 7th, I'm on the ballot as an at-large City Council candidate. I used to be an at-large councilor, and I'm the only one who served as both at-large and the past 4 years as a district councilor. And I'm probably the oldest person, oldest candidate here, and I look out there, I'm probably one of the oldest people in the room. So I go way back. And when I went to Chandler Junior High, I took civics education, and I loved it. I think it's one reason that I got interested in government and politics. And we really need civics education back in middle school and high school for all our students. So many of our students, first of all, don't know there's an election coming up on November 7th. Many probably don't care, and they should know and they should care. It's important that we interest people in politics and government and service to our community at an early age. So that's where I would start. It's difficult to get people interested at an older age. You've got to whet their appetite back in an early age. So to get more diverse populations involved in government and leadership roles, I think we have to be positive. We always have to have a positive message. People who know me know that I'm always positive. I try not to be negative. I try to show that I care. I try to approach issues and people from a caring perspective, with respect for them, with self-respect, with dignity. And if we want to get them involved in government and leadership roles, then we have to be role models. The people who are appointed officials and the people who are elected officials must always remember we do serve as role models for our youth. Sometimes that isn't the case. Whether it's local or statewide or national, it's not the case. But I try my best to be a role model for the people in Worcester, and especially the youth in the city of Worcester. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. It's a complicated question. One of the reasons why it's complicated is I suppose it depends how you define diversity. If it's racial or ethnic, we have a long way to go. There are now 4 women city councilors. When I started, there was less than that, still not half, but it's progress. There's somebody of color on the council. There's somebody with Latin American background. There are 2 people from a minority, religious minority on the council, Councilor Rosen and myself. So it depends how you define diversity. But if you define it by color, yes, we've got a long way to go. I'll also say that I think our boards and our boards particularly are getting much more diverse, and that's a credit to the manager and to the mayor in choosing who serves on those boards. As far as elected officials, yes, there's some ways to go. But then again, I would like to know how many people are running and not being elected and why they're not being elected. And I think it's easy to say there's not enough diversity on the council, but it's a much harder question to ask who is running that's diverse and what efforts are they making and why are they not winning. Those are factual information, pieces of information that we don't yet have. As far as how to improve it, I would defer and agree with what Councilor Rosen has said. A lot of this focus is civics, and especially with our immigrant communities. People have to learn at a young age, particularly our immigrant children, how important it is to be involved, because you have a leadership role when you become involved. And I think all people tend not to be involved. That's why we have 15% or less that turn out for elections. But particularly diverse communities and immigrant communities need to understand and realize the earlier you get involved with civics, the more successful you're going to be in the long run in getting involved in government and being successful in government and being successful in leadership roles. I think we can do better, but I'm also cautious in wanting to know more about why people with diverse backgrounds are not getting elected. I think it's too easy to say they're not being elected because they're diverse. I think it's a much more complicated question, and I look forward to the day where we don't even ask that question. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christian King, and I'd love to have your vote on November 7th. I'm a first-generation American. My family came here from the island of Bermuda to make a better life for my siblings and As far as the question, as a city, how are we doing with inclusion of our diverse populations in government? This current city council is the most diverse city council the city has ever had. We have a number of women. I think it's the most amount of women we've had serving at one time. I'm very proud to be the first black male elected since 1936. I'm also the first black male to serve as an at-large city councilor. And that's very important. The thing that reminds me is Bill Coleman's here tonight, and I remember in high school, I was a basketball player, and his face was one that resonated with me in the newspaper. And I think the more folks that are elected, the more folks that you see that look like you leads to representative government. I got involved in our community as a social worker after losing 3 friends to gun violence here in the city. And I've been practicing social work ever since. My daughter's sitting in the audience in the green. She just got her master's degree in social work, and she'll be giving back to the city as well. You know, and with regards to diverse populations and leadership roles, you know, I agree with what was previously stated. The city manager has really focused upon trying to make the boards and commissions more diverse. And a lot of the times that's the pool that we receive a lot of candidates from. Additionally, what I've done personally, the mayor has a civics academy. I participated in that during the day, taking time away from work to make sure that I was a part of that, where they select a number of students from different schools. Also, I participated this year and last year in voter registration drives at Worcester Public Schools for our seniors. Those things are just so extremely important to remind our youth that it's their civic duty to participate in our community, to contribute to our community, and to always give back. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Joe Petty. I'm running for mayor for seeking a fourth term as mayor of the city of Worcester, and that's for your consideration. But to answer your questions, we've come a long way. In the last 2 years ago, we had community meetings in the city of Worcester, and I think we've come a long way since then. And what good came out of that, the manager provided a report on everything that we're doing as a city and government. We really look at government now. In the last year, we've hired the highest ranking Latino in the Worcester Police Department now, and also the highest ranking African American in the Worcester Police Department. So, we've hired, in the manager's office, is diverse between women in the office and African American in the office, and we also have a Latino in the office, right in his office where he's working. So we've hired a number of, just hiring in the city of Worcester. The staff's a little bit outdated, but at one point there was about 30% of hires, 79 the last year, where communities of color, peoples of color, and a little bit more for women. So and look at the advisory boards. We've taken a conscious decision to hire more communities of color, people in the community that represent everyone here in the city of Worcester. And when you look at this stuff, it's so important that this government represents the people it represents. Because people are more comfortable, if you're understanding, if you can bring people together in the city. In fact, the last police class that graduated 2 Fridays ago, if you looked at that graduating class, there was a good mix of people between women, communities of color, and there was an African, a person from Ghana in the class. I said, "You're the first Ghana man who graduated?" "No, I'm the third of the Worcester Police Department." So you see that growing here in the city, people get more involved. Hopefully that will cause more people, like Christian was saying, people that represent you, he was looking at Bill Coleman, and all of a sudden people that represent yourselves goes a long way, especially in the schools. I think we have more to do in the schools, more diverse teachers, communities of color. It's a hard thing to do, but it is on the priority list. We have a ways to go on that. I think about 80% of the teachers are probably white, and if you look at the makeup of those public schools, it's a changing population, and so it makes a big difference. And as long as the mayor is going to keep on moving forward on this, we've come a long way. We have a ways to go, and I'm pretty proud of the stuff that we accomplished, because we're a city that cares. We're a city that really, for the first time, I think we're all trying to get on the same page.
Hello, my name is Ben Strabe. This is my first time running for anything, and one of the reasons that I got involved was because I thought that people should be focusing on diversity. And one particular councilor, Mr. Gaffney, needed to be stood up to, and I thought that could be my contribution. So I think getting involved on an individual basis is something that's very important throughout the city to increase the diversity on the boards and on the council. Another thing that I think the city councilors can do is set a tone throughout the city that's inviting and lets people know that the diversity is one of our city's major strengths, and that it's something that we value as city councilors. And we can do that through some of the things that the mayor mentioned, the hiring practices, the appointment of the chief diversity officer not too long ago, increasing minorities on the police force, and making sure that all police force and fire department are representative of the communities that they're serving. So the other thing, as Mr. Rosen said, encouraging participation on the student level, both in schools, as he mentioned, but also on the collegiate level as well. I think it's a good opportunity to get people involved in the city and taking some ownership there, and thereby increasing the diversity and the representation of everybody.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kate Toomey, and I'm running, asking for your vote, running for re-election for City Council. I've been fortunate enough to be a City Councilor for, my goodness, 6 terms. And prior to that, I was on the school committee for 3 terms. And so I think that having had that background for education and understanding of the diverse population within our schools, it was a critical element to bring over to the city side. And so I understand that our city of Worcester is fast growing and that we have roughly over 116 different people, 116 different countries represented, with folks from speaking over 80 different native languages. And so that's a little bit awe-inspiring and scary a little bit. How do we reach those folks? How do you get to people where they are? And I think that's something that government has worked very hard on over the past several years, is where do we reach? How do we communicate? It's no longer the traditional forms of, oh, well, everybody reads the newspaper. We have to reach out and talk to people in person. We've got to go out to where people are. We have folks that have come from other countries who aren't trusting of government, and so they need to be spoken to one-on-one, and we need to change the whole way in which we include people. We're using technology, we're tweeting, we're using hashtags, trying to get out. A lot of people do use technology to overcome that communication. We certainly are working, I think, to make sure that our staff is trained, and that's what this diversity office has done. They've done a lot of training and staff in terms of making sure that our job applications are correct, and that how the questions that are being asked at interviews are good. But we're also getting out into the community. But the question actually talks about what are we doing with inclusion of diverse populations in government and leadership roles? And so as part of that, we need to continue to advocate, especially with our young folks, and having them understand that their role and their place is that of being a public servant in the future. And that's what I grew up with, that thinking that I needed to be part of public service to help others. And so that's our ask out there, and we need to do better. Thank you.